Howdy everybody. I pray this video finds you blessed. So this week I did some experimenting with some dye and alcohol ink. And then of course I coated it with resin. I used the Ulta dye. Put the link in the description below for that. And I also used some alcohol inks I got off of Amazon. A little less expensive than your name brand alcohol inks, but clearly they worked just fine, especially for this experiment. It's a piece of magnolia that I had from a friend. She cut down in March, so it definitely wasn't dry, but I didn't care. I was kind of just wanting to go out and experiment and do something, and I was pleasantly surprised with the end result. In the video, I'll show step by step on how I did it, and also used some fine glitter, extra fine glitter. You can get extra fine glitter at Walmart, Michael's, any craft supply. You can probably get it on Amazon as well. So those are the three main things I used, well, four main things with the Total Boat. That high shine just gave it some extra dimension, and the glitter kind of added a little pop to it. I did this rim because I waxed it first and the resin in the dye was not soaking in and setting in, but it also gives me a design opportunity to kind of add that extra feature where the wood was popping through at the very top, which I ended up absolutely loving. I used a beading tool for that, and I just got those off of Amazon not too long ago. I love those beading tools. Finished this with a food safe finish. I've used it several times already. I make my own pasta, and this is my pasta making bowl. I hope you guys enjoy the video and the process of this experiment, and I pray that y'all have a wonderful weekend. Take care, and God bless. This chunk of magnolia has been sitting on my workbench since March, so it's developed some cracks. They weren't too bad though, considering that it's not sealed or anything else. I just mounted it on a wormwood screw, and from here for the next few minutes it's just roughing it out and working hard to Starbond is offering 15% off to my subscribers, so if you are thinking about putting in an order, well, here's the time to do it. I don't know how long the 15% off will run for. The camera doesn't do it justice, but the sunset that night was beautiful. You know, cotton candy colors and very vibrant. I had to share. I sanded to about 600 grit on the inside. The outside I kind of just sanded to 400 because I was afraid that if I sanded too far, then the dye that I was going to use on the outside wasn't going to take evenly. I put several coats of sanding sealer on the inside just to kind of ensure that the dyes and whatever I used as a finish on the outside wouldn't seep through the end grain. I also coated the inside really good with my Food Safe DIY polish paste, and I left a really kind of like thin layer on it. I didn't buff it out because I wanted it to protect the inside, so when I put the dye on the outside, if any got on the rim, then I can easily just wipe it away, and it did work. I used purple first because I wanted to put a turquoise kind of color. The wood was really yellow to begin with, and I wanted to neutralize that color before I started building my color in order for it to come out even. Your starting point, the color of the wood, will determine the ending color when you build with especially translucent dyes. So keep that in mind. You can always go online and find a color wheel that will show you what colors you need to use on a piece of wood prior to putting your intended color to help neutralize those undertones. I painted all the dye on, and I just waited a few minutes later to let it soak in as much as I could, and then I kind of just like dabbed it or like you can see here, just wiped whatever was loose off. And I wanted to, while that was still kind of wet, use the alcohol ink. I didn't want to wait till it was dry because I was afraid that the alcohol ink would just run even more. But it worked out. I don't really think you would have to keep it wet in order for the alcohol ink to work with this method, but that was just kind of my logic behind it, and it ended up working out. So I'm just dripping white alcohol ink on it as it turns, and I love the fact that because the alcohol ink, or sorry, the dye underneath is still kind of wet, the white mixed with it and made those white dots kind of look bluish. It gave it dimension, and I didn't expect it to look that way. And of course I'm just filling in some random spots that didn't get hit when I had it turning. The RPMs I had this turning the whole time, even with the resin on it, was 50 RPMs. I had it going as slow as it'll go, so I can, they wouldn't sling these the droplets off. That was my fear. After seeing how that turned out, I was like, well, let's throw some more on there. So I decided to do a blue that was very similar. So when these droplets landed over top of the white, that would kind of further add dimension. You kind of, I don't know, when you're experimenting like this, you're just kind of like, let's see what happens. And so I decided to add a little bit of green in there too. I thought that would give it a nice pop of color, and also bring some medium tones, because I have white and then I have blue, and there's nothing in there in between to help kind of even out that dimensional level, I guess. This sat on my lathe for probably 2 days before I coated it with resin, so I would definitely recommend at least 24 hours. The dye is a water base, and I did not add any alcohol to it to speed up the drying process. I just wanted to let it dry the way it was going to dry, and surprisingly my bowl did not warp much at all, like very little, considering that this was still considered green wood when I first turned it. While the resin was still wet, I grabbed some fine glitter and just kind of blew it on there to help kind of like spread it out a good bit. I was afraid it was going to get clumps. So here I'm sanding it back because the resin, you can see how it kind of took a little uneven. That could be because of the reaction with the alcohol ink on there, or just how it decided to settle. Sometimes I get that in pieces where I don't have alcohol ink on it. It just wants to dipple, and it could be because there's still moisture, because I may have not left this to dry long enough. I don't know. When this happens with my other pieces, the second coat normally fixes it and levels everything out just fine. I ended up having to do a third coat because while I had the lathe running at 50 RPMs, I went inside and just kind of set my timer to come back out and shut it off. Well, the power went off, and of course then the lathe shut off as well because the power went off, and I didn't get out there in time to turn it back on. So I ended up having a sag in the resin. But at this point, it was kind of a good thing it had happened, because the rim was not taking the resin because of the wax I had put on there prior to prevent the dye from getting on the top side of the rim and inside. So I just gave me an excuse to use my beading tool and kind of add a feature to it. It's one of those things where you're just kind of rolling with it, and I guess enjoying the challenges that come unexpectedly with the experimenting process. I can't lie and say there isn't some frustration, but it gave me an opportunity to really start thinking and using the tools and ideas that I have to kind of just make this thing all come together. Some of the dye had come off when I was doing my beading tool, and it actually chipped off a little bit with my resin. So I just filled that back with dye, waited for that to dry a little bit, and then put a little bit of coloring in my final coat with a little bit of green fine glitter. And finally, this was the very last coat that I had to do, and it turned out perfect. And I love this bowl. It's fits my kitchen and my colors, and I also love using it to make my pasta with. So while I'm sanding and finishing the inside, the shellac that I use is out of the can. It is not food safe. So if you want to make shellac in your own sanding sealer that is food safe, just buy the shellac flakes like off Amazon or wherever they sell them, and cut them yourself with drinking alcohol to ensure that it's food safe. I'm using this bowl for personal use. I'm not selling it, so I'm not labeling it as something that is food safe and it not be. Just make sure whatever company or manufacturer product that you use, it can stand behind its own, claims of it being food safe. If it doesn't say food safe on the package, then it's not food safe. Like I said, I'm using this for personal use, and I feel comfortable with that for myself, but I know I would not sell this as a food safe. There's probably questions on whether it could be considered food safe just because of the resin on the outside. My thought process behind it, of course, use your own research and make your own decisions based upon your own research. The resin is not going to soak into the inside of the bowl. Once it cures, it's hardened, it's done. There's no more nothing, and my food is not coming in contact with the outside of it, just the inside of it. Again, just do what you feel is comfortable for you, and make sure the companies can stand behind whether it's food safe or not. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching my videos. I'm now past 24,000 subscribers. Thank you all so very much for getting me there, supporting my channel, and helping me be able to continue doing what it is that I absolutely love, and I love sharing with y'all. So I pray you all have a wonderful weekend. Take care, and God bless. Belly's growling again. Anyways,